When my son, Caleb, asked me to model for his art project, I didn't think twice before agreeing. It was the kind of request only a child could make so innocently, and it made me smile. Caleb had always been the creative type. Even as a child, he spent hours sketching in his notebooks or molding strange little sculptures out of clay. He had this quiet depth about him, the kind that made you pause mid-conversation and realize he was seeing the world differently. Now, at 21, he was in his third year at the Savannah School of Art and Design. I'd seen how hard he worked, how passionate he was about his projects. So when he said he needed someone he trusted to be the subject of his final piece, I felt honored. What kind of modeling? I asked him, raising an eyebrow. I was standing at the kitchen counter, still wearing my work clothes, stirring a pot of chili. Caleb was lounging on the stool, his sketchpad in his lap, his pencil tapping rhythmically against the edge. Nothing weird, Mom, he said with a grin. Just portrait stuff. It's for my advanced figure drawing class. Professor Bellamy said we need someone we know well, someone we can portray honestly. So you want to paint me? Draw first, then paint. You'll be sitting in a chair, that's all. But I want to capture you in a real moment. Not just a smile. I want something that shows emotion. Depth. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, I've got plenty of emotions to choose from. Which one do you want? Frazzled. Exhausted. I'm thinking reflective. Strong. The kind of look you get when you're telling one of your stories about Grandma Ruth or when you're sitting on the porch with your coffee, just staring out at the trees. He was serious. I saw the way his eyes narrowed slightly as he described the pose, as if he could already see the finished canvas in his mind. It made my heart swell. This was the same boy who used to draw superheroes on our fridge, and now he was talking about shadow and emotion and color balance. Okay, I said finally. I'll do it. We scheduled the session for that Sunday. Caleb had set up a small studio space in our garage while he was home for the summer. He'd converted the place completely, drapes hung over the windows to control lighting, easels stood in the center, canvases leaned against the walls, some completed, others half done, each with a story of its own. There were jars of brushes, tubes of acrylics and oils, sketches clipped to boards, and the faint scent of linseed oil lingered in the air. Just sit right there, Caleb said, motioning toward a worn but comfortable wooden chair positioned in front of a blank canvas. He adjusted a desk lamp overhead, aiming the light just above me. What should I wear? I asked, glancing down at my simple navy blouse and jeans. That's perfect. Just natural. He stepped back and studied the setup. Then, without saying another word, he picked up a pencil and began to draw. At first, I didn't know what to do with myself. Sitting still for long stretches isn't something I'm used to. I fidgeted, I scratched my nose, I shifted my weight. Caleb was patient, though, telling me when to relax, when to sit up, when to look away and let my eyes go soft. Eventually, I stopped thinking so hard about it. I just let myself be. The hours passed slowly. He'd take breaks every now and then to stretch his hand or sip water, but mostly he was locked in. Focused. Every so often, he'd step back, squint, then lean in again to adjust a line. It was fascinating to watch him work, to see my image come to life through his eyes. By the third session, he'd started painting. The canvas had begun to fill in with warm tones, rusty oranges, soft grays, warm browns. My face was starting to take shape, though it was strange to see myself through his artistic lens. He didn't just capture my features, he captured something inside me. There was a weariness, yes, but also a quiet resilience, the kind that comes from years of holding a family together, of weathering storms without falling apart. One afternoon, as I sat quietly in the chair, Caleb paused mid-brushstroke and asked, "Do you ever regret anything?" The question caught me off guard. "Of course," I said, after a moment. "Doesn't everyone?" He nodded but didn't say more, so I asked, "Why do you ask?" "I guess I'm just thinking about how many things you've done for me. For us. You gave up so much after Dad left." I swallowed hard. Caleb rarely brought up his father. Jason had walked out when Caleb was 10. One morning he said he was going to the store, and he never came back. The shock of that moment had carved itself into both of us in different ways. I picked up 2 jobs. Caleb picked up a sketchpad. I did what I had to, I said gently. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. He looked at the canvas for a long time before whispering, I never said thank you. You didn't have to, I replied. You becoming the man you are, that's thanks enough. There was a heaviness in the air after that, the kind that comes with unspoken truths finally surfacing. But there was something healing about it, too. Like we had stepped into a space we'd avoided for years and found it wasn't as scary as we feared. By the end of the second week, the portrait was nearly finished. Caleb had layered in more color, added texture to the background, and softened the shadows around my face. The final details were in my hands, fingers slightly curled in my lap, and a silver bracelet that once belonged to my mother. When I looked at it, I saw more than just a painting. I saw a story. My story. And his. On the final day, he had me come in just for a last adjustment. He wanted to get the light right on my eyes. I sat down, and he stood behind the easel, his expression intense, then slowly softened. I think I'm done, he said, setting the brush down. He turned the easel toward me, and I saw it for the first time in full. There I was, my eyes a little tired, my posture relaxed, a small smile on my lips that seemed to speak of all the things I never said out loud. Behind me was a subtle blend of warm colors, a backdrop that hinted at fall trees and memories long buried. It was beautiful. And raw. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I stood, walking toward him. Caleb, it's stunning. He looked at me, emotion dancing in his eyes. I wanted to show who you really are, Mom. Not just how you look, but how you feel. What you've been through. What you've given. I hugged him tightly. He held on, just like he used to when he was small. It was a quiet, powerful moment. One I'll never forget. The next week, Caleb submitted the portrait to his professor, and it was chosen for the campus gallery exhibit. When I went with him to the opening night, I wore a simple black dress and stood beside him as people stopped to look at the piece. They didn't know it was me at first. Some tilted their heads thoughtfully, commenting on the depth of the eyes, the subtle strength in the hands. Then Caleb stepped forward and introduced me. This is my mother, he said proudly. The woman who never let me fall apart, even when everything else did. A woman beside us teared up. A man nodded solemnly. I felt something shift inside me, a recognition I didn't expect. For so long, I'd been in the background, quietly surviving. But here I was, finally seen. Not just by others, but by my own son.